This is an astrology video about the new moon on November 13th, 2023. So let's jump ahead and jump right in and share the screen with you of this astrology chart. And I like to look at my charts from the perspective of Jerusalem, or at least I've been doing that recently. And this article or this video is titled Astrology Insights for Empowerment at the New Moon on November 13th, 2023. This is subtitled Accepting the Consequences of Change. And this is a reading of a Substack blog called Raising Consciousness at the domain joshuablattman.substack.com. So let's jump straight in, starting with Pluto and some about Venus. Pluto is young in the 29th degree of Capricorn at this new moon. It's burning away confidence in, quote, structural authority. And what we can each do about it is transform facts into archetypes to get greater guidance about what to do from our own inner authority. Remember, there's a story behind every instance. We have to learn how to fly unemotionally. So I'll analogize all of society to a fighter jet. But your boss might not hate you. You just might not be doing your job well. Whatever the story is, whatever the meaning you are making out of your situations, whatever the story is, say that again, what is the meaning you are making out of your situations, and what responsibility for your choices are you taking? A fighter jet has very little room for forgiveness. If you point the nose down, you'll go down. And you can complain all you want before you crash into the ground. So this is an opportunity to wake up to our sense of what's important and meaningful instead of just focusing on what happened. Venus rises 45 degrees ahead of the sun in this chart that we're looking at right here. And people with Venus rising in their charts tend to wear their hearts on their sleeves and lead with what they think is important, whether it's the right call or not. Venus rising in Libra specifically, which it's doing right there at 5 degrees and 29 minutes of Libra, is calling us to new levels of participation such that we learn how to create our own hope. It seems unlikely for anyone to create their own hope while they're driveling in a nosedive moments from obliteration, such as in that fighter jet. So it's an opportunity or a challenge or a call to wake up to the reality that emotional equanimity is everyone's responsibility. And only through equanimity can we stomach, aka Venus, the true participation that humanity needs from each one of us. Pluto, from Jerusalem's perspective, is in the 12th house, which you can see in this chart. It's only 6 degrees above the eastern horizon at the moment that the new moon conjunction is exact. This suggests that Pluto themes frame the day. And while it's still considered square to the lunar nodes and Eris, we either lose our innocence and take action with hope in a brighter future anyway, or we allow obliteration to happen at the hands of what I'll call mercenarianism. And I get that from Pluto square to the lunar nodes and the North Node conjunct Eris and Aries. So if this is your first time seeing an astrology chart, let me see if I can get my my mouse to show up here. It doesn't look like I can. Oh yeah, it looks like I can actually. So Eris is right here at 24 degrees, 27 minutes, and the North Node is right there, right behind it, 24 degrees, 48 minutes. Venus is up here, and Pluto is over here at 28 degrees. The eastern horizon is this thicker line right there. The new moon conjunction is happening right here at the top of the day. So the North Node, the South Node is this upside down U-shaped horseshoe thing, right exactly across from the North Node, which is the N-shaped horseshoe. So humanity is, since Pluto has passed the exact square by a few degrees, burning through old karma of thinking it's standing up for the little guy when really individuals are acting out their ignorance. Neptune and Saturn. I know that is maybe a big claim, but I think it's like right there. It's showing up in astrology. I'll even say it again. Humanity is burning through old karma of thinking it's standing up for the little guy when really individuals are acting out their ignorance. Okay, so Neptune and Saturn. I'll discuss Saturn with Neptune here because they're both in Pisces, um, right here in this dual-sided radio dish with a line through it. And because Saturn's stationed direct back on November 4th. What feels like it's been falling apart is getting new directions for creating sacred ground if we can only let go of the need for things to be different than they are. So, this is a process to be patient with. Saturn leaves post retrograde shadow on February 7th, 2024, at 7 degrees 13 minutes of Pisces, and we'll have new convictions and plans about how to move forward by then. So, from now, well, November 4th, 9 days ago, until February 7th, Saturn will be transiting through its post retrograde shadow. Um, and that's largely about implementing learning from the tests set forward during the pre retrograde phase um, and moving forward with the learning. So, this is the first new moon since Saturn stationed direct. So, old karma is starting to clear out, but because it's only starting, think of it like entrenched ideologies are being exposed. It's like the structures of the social order based on agreements and alliances are breaking down all over the place, while collective consciousness looks for supporting systems to ensure humanity's survival into its next epoch. Saturn and Neptune are, quote, new phase to Pluto, which implies that the rate of cultural change is flailing. I say flailing to highlight the unconscious ancestral energies that de individualize people so they act out their unconscious and, and subconscious and succumb to their tribal groupthink. So, is your spiritual mission built on tribalism and territorial conquering, or is your spiritual mission built on human connection and spiritual sustenance? Saturn's direct station, sandwiched between Pluto and Neptune, implies that structural changes are softening the veil to the immaterial realm at the same time that we might be quick to aggression for self defense. So there's a thinning of boundaries at the same time that we need to maintain and fortify our boundaries. So it's a spiritual test of, well, it's a spiritual challenge to establish boundaries. And moving back to the picture, Pluto is here, and all the planets are moving down counterclockwise. And so Saturn and Neptune are in the first 57 degrees of the orbit in relation to Pluto. And so that is why I say new phase. So all the planets move clockwise on the daily rotation because the Earth spins faster than the planets orbit around the sun. So, so the planets move counterclockwise around the sun on the zodiac, but they move clockwise on the daily rotation. So that's a little confusing and something important to note. Uranus on the MC, while Jupiter is getting close to it. So Uranus is here at the bottom on that thick black line, and Jupiter is getting close, about 12 degrees behind it. So Uranus on the Imam Coeli, or nadir, which is that thick black line I mentioned, for Jerusalem at the moment of this moon, that's where Uranus is. So this means that of all the places in the world, Jerusalem is on the plane that extends from the center of the sun through the moon, Jerusalem, the center of the earth, and out to Uranus. It's the point extending straight down through the center of the earth, And whenever this happens, the identity of the character that the chart represents is being, quote, shaken up. That bottom point re- um, symbolizes the identity of the character, whether that's a personal chart or a national chart or any other kind of chart. Again, it's the point extending straight down through the center of the Earth. Okay, moving forward. So Uranus is at 21 degrees, 4 minutes, and 34 seconds of Taurus while in this retrograde phase right now. And it'll pass this point again after it's stationed direct during its post-retrograde shadow, which I put in the image on the article, which you're welcome to go check out at joshuablattman.substack.com. And that post-retrograde placement when Uranus gets back to where it is now occurs on April 6th, 2024, when Jupiter has moved from 12 degrees behind it as it is now to only 2.5 degrees behind it. This suggests that tensions between how cultures organize and relate will heighten for the next several months, and that enduring service will only be sustained by those with a clear spiritual identity based on spiritual truths. Notice that Venus is on Jerusalem's IC when Uranus transits direct over the exact same minute of space that it's in at this new moon on April 6th. And so because Venus will be at the IC, that means that spiritual identity and based on a strong individual spiritual perspective, value perspective, which is about what Venus is about, value perspectives. But for now, the new moon alignment, the new moon is on Jerusalem's medium coeli, the MC, the high noon point of the day. So this thick black line up here is the high noon point of the day. This means that when the moon passes in front of the sun, as it does at every new moon, the sun is at the high noon point, and Jerusalem will be facing the sun square on when the alignment occurs. In other words, the birth of the new lunar cycle occurs at the sun's high point of the day in Jerusalem. There will be an alignment, as I mentioned before, from the center of the sun through the center of the moon, the center of the earth, and out to intercept Uranus. This suggests deliverance by trusting your higher guidance. It's auspicious because the chart exactly reflects the conflicts and power struggles that are occurring on Earth between truths, beliefs, and facts. Truths, beliefs, and facts. So the new moon is also conjunct Mars on that MC. Mars is this red one here with the circle and the arrow. Mars is 1.4 degrees ahead of the new moon exact conjunction, which is also considered conjunct to the MC and Mars. But Mars is on the other side of the MC, and it's on the other side of the opposition to Uranus. Since the sun and moon both travel slower than Mars, they're considered balsamic or end of phase to Mars instead of new phase to Mars. And this represents new foundational understandings about what it means to exist, to have a body or a homeland, and to make that existence mean more than animalistic instinctual urges, so you can show up fully represented and acknowledged. So let me step back and zoom out for just a second to both acknowledge that this is educational. I'm getting technical in the astrology and I'm explaining the technicals of how it works, but I'm also trying to provide you guys with the synthesized understandings of what these data points correspond to, so that you understand a little bit about how astrology works, but also the meaning that I'm taking away from what the astrology is showing me. So again, as the article suggests, we're zooming out before zooming back in. Since we're talking about the new moon and Mars up there at the top of the chart, let's bring Ceres into the conversation. That's the backwards C on the pogo stick. At 24 degrees, 56 minutes of Scorpio. That's this black one right here. And so we're bringing Ceres into the conversation, and we'll highlight the 150-degree aspect which is called an inconjunct or a quincunx, that that Ceres is in, the vibration that Ceres is in with respect to Eris and the North Node conjunction that's ongoing and exact on November 25th. So the Eris North Node conjunction is 22 minutes apart at this new moon, which is like a breath from the intensity of the beginning of October when they were as close as 7 minutes apart. So because all these planets and points are moving in dynamic motion, um, this is not a mechanistic thing. Like astrology is not gears. Um, the planets don't move like gears on a motor. They move dynamically. So Eris, the North Node and Eris were as close as 7 minutes at the beginning of October, and at this new moon, they're 22 minutes apart, which is 15 minutes. A little bit of breath, a little bit of a separation. So while the North Node is dancing close with Eris and the new moon is applying to Mars and Ceres too at the MC, it's like this new lunar cycle creates a confrontation between our structural understanding of cause and effect with our individual missions, which are awkwardly reconciling the juxtaposition of material trust versus spiritual faith and what it means to live a meaningful life. So think about that for a second and then let go of the Eris North Node conjunction to look at what Earth is actually in the middle of. The Uranus opposite the new moon and Mars. That's also happening on the IC-MC axis. And so Dane Rudger, which is considered one of the most influential astrologers in history, called this the MC-IC axis as the axis of power. It's the vertical axis where straight down through the center of the earth meets straight up into the heavens above you, in you, as you, and through you. With the new moon occurring exactly at the high noon point of the day while Uranus is in retrograde on the exact opposite side, it implies that the foundations of self emanating from Jerusalem are being given a direct dose of discontinuity, and self, quote, self, is being shaken up such that it appears to be moving backwards. This is a time of great emotion within misorientation. And I say misorientation, which isn't technically a word, instead of disorientation, because to imply that there's disinformation involved as well. Misinformation as well. Simple-minded folks who just do what they're told and believe what they who do what they're told and believe what they're told may likely feel extra strongly about what they know they're right about. Consider the difference between confidence and authority, and consider the contrast between certainty and accuracy. Mars is passed exactly opposite to Uranus, and the new moon is still rising to its exact opposition with Uranus. Because Uranus is in retrograde, it confuses the intuition of an already highly charged and emotional new moon. Venus, which I talked about briefly in the Pluto section above, is 136 degrees ahead of Uranus, which is an aspect called a separating waxing sesquiquadrate. This aspect is a 90-degree square and a half and symbolizes dissonance. And that dissonance is reflected between the cultural changes that we're going through related to Pluto and the need to stomach it. It's how we're being upgraded and how we're being challenged to see what we're being shown without overreacting. So with Uranus retrograde in Taurus and Venus rising direct in Libra, the same sign as the lunar south node, it's like the collective's intuition is making value judgments based on seduction of humanity's ancestral shadow, not based on the potential for a celebration of unity and diversity. So Uranus is right here, the purple one here, and Venus is the green circle on a pogo stick right there that I'm circling. And in summary, the role of a soul with a human heart in Jerusalem is to not indulge a duty to suffer, nor project it onto others. Take your marching orders straight from the divine that resides within you and through everything that is, interweaving all dimensions to find freedom within and throughout and stand up for what ultimately nourishes you. Take your marching orders straight from the divine that resides within you and through everything that is, interweaving all dimensions to find freedom within and throughout. And ultimately, each of our job is to stand up for what nourishes us, not the narratives that we're being told to believe in. Since nature and its principles create the structural framework of 4D time and space, Jupiter and Uranus's post-retrograde shadows, which end on March 23rd, 2024, and May 12th, 2024, respectively, allow ample time for dedication, patience, and the natural processes of growth and development to do what they do. In the meantime, the Eris North Node conjunction is triggering a lot of moral self-righteousness based on one's governing narrative. The energy will build through the conjunction on November 25th, 2023. That's the Eris North Node conjunction. But as Saturn transits through its post-retrograde shadow, leaving on February 7th, and moving on through Pisces, the karma of that governing narrative will have a chance to burn off for the next few months. An analogy that we might consider is that Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in jail, but that does not mean he could not find nor create freedom. Remember not to suffer the details. Be patient with your plans, relate to life's underlying structure, and trust your feelings so you're even more practiced with it for when the need arises. Happy new moon.